Welcome back to Cheaper Pop Culture. Many moons ago, Marvel created the merry marching band called Mutants. These creations would be applauded for the intellectual genius that they are, since you can pretty much use them as stand-ins for any minority group. Now, this works as a great way to talk about the current social climate without really talking about the current social climate. For example, when they were created, Stan Lee used Professor X and Magneto to mirror civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, respectively. But in order to disguise this, well, they whitewashed them, but they also cleverly slid the X onto the MLK parallel instead of the Malcolm X counterpart. Very clever. But since then, it seems that mutants have taken one giant step backwards. Because what was once an amazing tale of allegory, which had mutants representing the oppressed in a fantasy world where all of our real world issues were completely non-existent, mutants now just live in another crappy version of our own world. Marvel was supposed to be a fictional universe where racism, sexism, religiosism, homophobia, and all manners of real-world prejudice had been completely cured. Cured by humanity bonding through their hatred of mutants. Now, this taught real-world kids to not be prejudiced, but if they're gonna be prejudiced, well, they should at least have the decency to save their hatred for a fictional group of people. But now, Marvel is completely undoing that by having current civil rights issues apply to mutants by turning mutants gay, or turning them into ethnic minority groups, or having female characters take up male mantles. Now, regardless to how you feel about that, mutants aren't the only substitute group we can plug in to play the allegory game. So, we don't necessarily need the children of the atom to fill their old role, because we also got... Vampires have been used as stand-ins to represent many different kinds of minority groups throughout history. However, most of the time, it hasn't been flattering. In some countries, vampires have been used to represent the perceived threat of foreigners who can be viewed as seducing young women and draining life from society. However, later on, vampires would be used for more progressive purposes. For example, Blackula was used as a protagonist in his own film during the blaxploitation era, and vampires were also used by writers such as Anne Rice to represent the gay community and to tell stories that they otherwise couldn't. Think about it. Tom Cruise sucking on Brad Pitt's neck and then they adopt a little girl while living together? Looking back on it, that was a very obvious gay relationship that snuck right by everyone now, didn't it? Also makes you wonder, what's really going on with Danny Ocean and Rusty? Am I right? As we all learned from Solo, a Star Wars story, well, aside from learning that that movie sucked, we learned that L3 is a droid that very much has an issue with robophobia and droid enslavement, which has been an underlying subtext since the very beginning.
We don't serve their kind here.
And that's pretty odd, because they also have actual slaves in that universe too? But anyway, aside from an oppression far, far away, robot slavery has been a theme in several works of science fiction, from the Animatrix to AI to iRobot. And no, that is not an Apple product. Overall, it seems that when human writers are telling cautionary tales of a post-singularity world, it's either a story about us being enslaved by robots, or they're telling tales about us feeling guilty for enslaving robots. Seems like you just can't win. Maybe the Amish are onto something. You know what? To all you Amish out there watching this at home on your computers, on your tablets, or on your smartphones, I want to personally... Oh yeah, right. Yeah, I guess never mind then. Witches have been easy movie fodder for a very long time now. Like in the movie... The Witches. Oh, and by the way, that's a bizarrely frightening movie for kids. That's all I'm saying. And not just that film, because there are also witches of the Wicked West variety from The Wizard of Oz and the Blair Project kind. Now, oftentimes, witches are portrayed as villains. However, in one particular tale, the idea of this stereotype being incorrect was used to make a very important criticism of an issue going on at the time. In The Crucible, witches, or more accurately, the threat of witches during the Salem witch trials, was used to represent communism during the McCarthy era. With McCarthyism, people were being accused of being communists and then being sentenced for it, despite a lack of any actual evidence. And just simply speaking out against this practice was enough to get you yourself accused as well, which kept a lot of people quiet, which then in turn only kept the problem going on longer. Now, this is where the genius of Arthur Miller, the Crucible's playwright, comes in. He simply wrote a play about the Salem witch trials, a time when people were being falsely punished for accusations that had no proof. Now, he wasn't talking about communism or McCarthyism in any way. He was just writing about witches. However, the similarities to McCarthyism was enough to get people's attention, with McCarthyism ending not long after. The point of the matter is, whether punishment is by law or through social justice, it's wrong if it doesn't happen as a result of direct evidence. And sometimes, people just need to be told cautionary tales from history when they're really talking about what's going on currently. I'm just saying.